Hello and welcome to BE We have this week with us Mr. Gautam Thakar, CEO Star Sports India, to talk about IPL plans and how Star is building a huge content programming around IPL. Hi Gautam.
Hi.
So Gautam, if I start, this year you guys have said it's bigger IPL. Bigger in what sense? Already you have got 7 dedicated languages. But if you give us a sense in terms of content, in terms of how you plan to place everything, so bigger and better in what sense?
I think we're very excited, first of all, about this year's IPL. Last year was our first year, and while it was a great success in terms of growth on viewership as well as revenues and everything else, I think we learnt a lot, and I think we are bringing all that to bear this year. This is going to be the biggest IPL ever, we are quite convinced. And from the content lens, if we look at it, last year while we had languages, this year we have dedicated channels. So we have launched a Telugu channel, a Kannada channel and a Bangla channel actually just 2 days ago. So fresh off the press, if you will, or hot off the press. The fact that we have these 3 new channels which are 24/7, obviously they're for all sports, but during IPL that would be the biggest piece that happens. Over and above that, we will have a dedicated Super Sunday feed on Star Gold, which will be for kids and family audiences. So look feel will be much lighter, much more entertainment oriented, potentially even do things like having kids do some commentary sections, etc. So that you attract younger audiences and family audiences, because we believe Sundays is a big day. There are 2 games. So if you put all of this together, like we had Hindi, English and Tamil last year and a dugout, which we will make bigger, there are 3 more dedicated channels and a Star Gold feed. And on Sundays, we'll have programming in Marathi as well as Malayalam. So it's dramatically wider range, more segmented for different audiences. And roughly, I would say maybe order of magnitude 1.8 to 2x the volume of content that will be put out versus last year around the game. I mean, the live show is the live show, but pre-post, franchise shows, highlights, talking to the fans, etc. in their local communities. We believe that going regional and local really will make this exciting and make this really big.
So when you say, the increase in content, so there's also a very heavy investment in content, right? You'll also get regional anchors to give the flavor and everything else.
That's right.
What percentage or by how much times the investment in content increased this year?
To be honest, I don't know the investment numbers top of my head, but the largest proportion of the investment, apart from obviously production and all of that, when you launch new channels, is really making sure that the talent is of a caliber that suits the market, but is consistent with the rest of the talent. So commentators, anchors, etc. We have probably the best roster of commentators. I think we're going to announce the full list in a day or 2. But over 100 commentators empaneled now for the IPL, potentially some of them flowing into the World Cup, which will come just after, with very specific regional biases. We learnt on that as well last year. In Bengal, for example, there's a lot more sort of the Bengali consumer or audience feels like, they know cricket better than anyone else. And in fact, it's funny, some of the lines that they speak about, they say things like, we may not be the best players, but we are the best spectators of the game. Yeah. Because they really, understand and go into the depth. So that requires a different tonality. Whereas in some of the southern markets, there is a little bit more of entertainment and high octane energy that needs to be brought to bear. So I think that sort of the feeds will reflect some of that look, feel and be different. But very excited to bring that content together.
Last year it was said that IPL reached around more than 700 million users and the consumption increased about 25%. So if you have to give me an estimated reach this year, because you have so many feeds and so many languages, will you see a 100% increase, 150% increase? Where will we see that?
If we have a 100% increase, we'll have more people than the population of India watching. So that's probably hard. And obviously, it's hard to predict the reach. We think that because of these investments that we are making and the deeper that we are going on the regional, it'll be much bigger. And last year was already the biggest IPL, frankly, in terms of consumption and revenues. But we think the regional feeds, the customization, and I know in a moment you're going to talk about Hotstar as well and what that might do. I think all of that put together is going to make this frankly massive. It's hard to predict a number because already the numbers are so large.
So speaking of revenues, like I said, we were just trying to figure out the mathematics. Last year when I read about 11 feed, the quick calculation that I did was per match, it's an inventory of 2300 seconds, right? So I just multiplied with 11 feeds and I got an inventory worth of 1,15,000 seconds saying. But now that you're adding so many layers to it, the way you're selling to advertisers, are advertisers able to pick and choose select properties, or it's a combination that is being sold?
For the most part, it's a combination, and the promise is really to maximize viewership and reach for them. So, for example, if we launched a Telugu or a Kannada or a Bengali channel as an example, or the Star Gold Kids and Family feed, the idea is that we will go deeper to more audiences, and by that drive reach as well as, I mean, I'll tell you, for example, my personal case, you know, while my mom loves cricket and actually kabaddi, but and she watches it in Hindi or English, she's very conversant, but she's extremely conversant in Marathi, which is my mother tongue. And by having a Marathi feed, she will probably watch more. And there's a vast section of audiences like that. So the promise to advertisers is more people because of better reach in their language and more consumption, and targeting different segments like kids and families. So it's not really so much a pick and play type approach. It is that if you come on to IPL, it is the biggest property already in India. It always was, even when it had been built up prior to Star having it, and it's only getting bigger. So there's no better place if you want audience aggregation and massive reach. That said, there are some things that we allow people to choose. So for example, the select dugout, if they wanted to only talk to that audience, because there's less advertising on that feed anyway, it's more analysis, etc. So there are some choices, like if they want only HD, for example.
But that is sold at a premium rate compared.
That is sold at a premium rate because it targets different people. But I would say a vast majority of our sponsors and advertisers like the reach and the consumption, and it's sort of an all-in package.
Compared to last year, what has been the increase in total number of advertisers / sponsors that have come on board?
I mean, I'll have to actually, maybe we'll send you the numbers as well, and you can put a wrap around this and talk about it. I don't know them top of my head, but I think you may have seen that, you know, a few weeks ago we sort of announced a sponsor list already, which was much faster than last IPL. So the demand is really high. It is a bigger roster, both across TV and Hotstar. I think there are some categories that are opening up far more based on last year's experience. For example, we think FMCG as a category, which Coke was a big sponsor in, opened up really nicely last year. Swiggy and the food and, you know, ordering categories are opening up. Tech investments are back. Obviously, mobile phones and you know, telecom and all of these are always big sponsors. So it's a bigger list. But you know, the good news with IPL is that it is a finite set of inventory. So beyond the point, we don't have the ability to, and number of advertisers is not as much a goal as giving value to them.
Where do regional advertisers fit in? Because if you have so many regional feeds, I'm sure regional advertisers have also come on board, right?
Not as much, and partly because, as I said, we are selling this on a more national basis. Okay. And that's really the value that somebody gets is if they want to reach 4, 5, 6, 700 million people versus 30 million people. And there is so much demand for people wanting to reach that scale that at this point, we are largely focused on the national base. Going forward, we'll probably split and dice and think about it, but not this year.
Is Hotstar also being sold as part of the bundle offering, or separately being sold to advertisers?
We go together to market. We think there's tremendous value in sort of allowing people to, you know, consumers are watching everywhere. They're watching on TV, they're watching on their digital devices. And so it makes a lot of sense for advertisers to have a common view. At the same time, if some brands prefer only Hotstar or only TV, you know, the customer, in our case, the advertisers have the ability to choose that. But we think there's tremendous value in going together and in fact finding synergies in how to be more efficient by advertising on both.
I know it's not the right question to ask, but if you have to give us a percentage increase in your advertising revenue, what would you say?
It is probably not the right question to ask or answer. We don't share revenue numbers, but I will tell you that this is already looking like a much bigger year than last year. So we're very excited.
Usually a broadcaster likes to sell about 70 to 80% of the inventory and keeping the 20% for last minute entries. So is the same formula, or is it different this year?
No, there's no real reason, frankly, to keep something held back unless we are wanting to charge a premium. And the demand, frankly, IPL is one of those properties where there is so much value that we don't see a merit. Now, there is some amount of inventory that does get sold after, and depending on consumption, for example, on Hotstar, which is growing really nicely, if there is more inventory because there is more consumption, we may have an opportunity during the tournament to sell more as well. But we are not limiting ourselves to any quotas or anything of that sort.
Last year, something was started for production of IPL called remote production, which basically means less number of crews traveling to locations. And it was interesting from the point of view that it also allows you to bring down the cost of production tremendously, especially reduce travel, get talent here.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think you're following the same pattern this year also. So how does it actually help?
So a couple of things. When you're doing so many languages, for example, as you rightly called out, if you expect to take all the crews, the cameras, the production equipment, and also to set up those, mini studios then at every location, and it's traditionally, at least in the IPL, you have home and away games, and so when you're moving back and forth, that's a pretty cumbersome way to do business. And now we are with some stadiums, having direct fiber connections, etc. So it makes it quite easy. And so we still have the world feed or the main feed done from the stadium in every stadium. In some cases, we may do one additional feed just to get a local flavor. But the rest of the times, the commentary teams sit here, the feeds come in here, and they're all from our offices in Bombay, beamed up, if you will. So it's a much more efficient system. And with technology now allowing us to connect to stadiums real time, there's no latency and no speed issues that we see.
And the cost of production reduces by what percentage?
Again, I don't remember top of my head. I know that in every which way there'll be some number you'll want me to talk about, but it's not, actually production is not the most material cost in this piece, and it's less about cost saving is great, but the remote is more about efficiency in terms of productivity. Because imagine you have to take camera crew and commentators from stadium to stadium to stadium, rig up, rig down.
Yeah.
It's just it's not the most efficient way to do business, and we think this is far more efficient.
We have seen the teasers of the campaigns that have come out, and this is just the first lot, I believe. Over a period of, I think, 1 to 2 months, you'll release a lot more. And I think this is the first time you see all the franchisee team players coming up in this thing. So what was the idea behind the campaign? And instead of placing each team separately, you got everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, we think, and we launched the sort of the big anthem film, if you will, just a couple of days ago. We had a few teasers before that. We think the big idea really is, name banayega game. That's how we are articulating it in Hindi. And if you think about it, there's a Sanskrit inscription on the trophy itself, which loosely translated means IPL is a platform where talent meets opportunity. And that is really true. I think the team was very excited that this platform is actually the hotbed of youngsters to come prove themselves and have a pathway to the national team. So if you look at most players in the team today, whether it is Hardik Pandya, Jadeja, Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer, all of them have actually been discovered at some level in the IPL. And so the underlying thought was that it's really your game that matters, and who you are is not really as relevant. But the broader thought is, we think this is a thought that captures the sentiment of young India. I think today, young folks are starting companies, building global companies in the tech space particularly. But the attitude is, if I'm good enough, I can do anything. And we think that's great. And the IPL is just a celebration of that. So that's really the thought that we wanted to encapsulate. And I think having all of the team's players in there just makes it a nice sort of composite story for the IPL to kick off.
I know we are in IPL season and this looks a little far-stretched, but there was a point it was being said that, Star may bundle World Cup and IPL together.
In terms of advertising?
Advertising. So, because Star usually follows a pattern where you give a lot more to advertisers than giving one single property. That's what is being said. So, how does it look? Are we bundling? We are not bundling?
No, actually, we are pretty focused all up till now on IPL. Obviously, if you go to a large advertiser and they want to think through a larger plan, we'll talk about both. So it's less about us, it's more about what the customer wants. For example, there are some advertisers for whom the summer months are a big season, and they want to look at a composite play. So we would have those discussions. For some others, obviously, if you do two properties, the outlays increase. So their budgets may allow them to do one or the other. So we are not really looking at bundling as a strategy. It's more on a client need basis that we would sort of go down that path.
Sure. So all geared up for 23rd March is when I believe everything begins.
That's right. That's right. We're very excited. 23rd March. In fact, on all levels, actually, whether it is our marketing campaign, our content plans, and certainly our advertising, we are well ahead of where we were last time. Of course, we did it the first time and we learned from that. So it's hectic, but it's going to be fun. And I think we are convinced that we'll see new stars emerge. We'll see some teams who have maybe not won do better this year or not. But we're excited about the opening and making this IPL the biggest ever.
Thank you so much, Gautam. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.